My name is Dilorenzo. I was born in Columbus, Ohio. Growing up was a mixed bag. I don't remember too much of my childhood, but I've always been interested in art and making things. I remember growing up in these apartment buildings that had a courtyard, and all of my friends and I would run around on the courtyard and build fairy houses and sing songs and go on adventures. I always wanted to make art when I was a kid, so that's what I did a lot of the time. Boy Scouts too. I really wanted to be a Boy Scout when I was younger, and I would go to my little brother's meetings and we'd go camping together. When I started going through puberty was when things really hit the fan for me, and I started going to therapy when I was around 8th grade because I had developed a lot of self-harm habits and eating disorders. It took a long time for counseling to help me, but it did in that I was able to kind of just talk through my own craziness and overcome that stuff. One time in the car when I was with my dad and my brother, and Katy Perry was on and she was singing that song, I Kissed a Girl, and I liked it. And I don't know, it really got to me, and I was like, oh man, everybody knows I'm gay, everybody thinks I'm gay, blah, blah, blah. So I just yelled out of nowhere, I'm not gay. And I think that's kind of when they had a clue. So high school sucks. I think everyone knows that. I went to a school with about 2,500 people and had really intense social anxiety, just being around that many people throughout the day and not feeling like I had a place there or the room to express myself. I was in my sophomore year of high school at a public school, and I had been thinking a lot that day, and I went to my sculpture class, and I remember sitting there with this pile of clay in front of me, and I was just asking myself, what am I? What do I identify as? Who am I attracted to? And I was putting so much pressure on myself to have an answer, and at the end of the period, I just told myself, look, you don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to put yourself into any boxes or identify with any certain labels. Just, I am who I am, I love who I love, and that's that. Because I don't necessarily identify as either male or female, and I think that biologically I was assigned female at birth. But even though sometimes I dress feminine, I don't ever really feel like a woman or a man. I feel like something in between, or something that's beyond that, because my personality has so many different elements to it. Deciding that I didn't need to label my gender or my sexuality was really freeing for me. I felt like I was exempt from all of these societal pressures because I knew who I was, even if I didn't have a name for it. And I just felt like I trusted myself and my instincts about who I was, how I dressed, and who I was attracted to. Gender dysphoria is when you feel a disconnect between how you look like versus how you actually look like. So when I look into the mirror and I say, oh, that's not me, that's something else, I look different, and I just have a hard time dealing with the way that I look, especially when I was younger and I was first developing breasts and gaining weight, and really coming to terms with the fact that I was not a guy, which is what I felt like as I was growing. I always felt like a more masculine entity, but you know, you gotta work with what you got. And I've really grown into like having a female body, I guess. I identify as a queer person that is not really tied down to any particular gender role. I do use they, them pronouns. When I think about growing up queer, I think about the times that I've felt isolated by society, but I also think about all of the magical moments that I've had with friends just existing in these temporary microscopic utopias that we can hope one day manifest into reality. I didn't really do that many sports, but I danced for a long time, all kinds of dance. I really loved ballet, but as I started developing and going through puberty, I had a harder and harder time coping with that, and especially my body and the way that it was developing. Part of that was just things were changing and going in a direction that was more feminine. I had a really hard time looking at myself in the mirror, and it was just a really hard time for me to feel comfortable in my own skin. And I think that part of that is how society makes people feel about their bodies, and also how gender really shapes, or how my personal gender dysphoria, I guess, was also part of that. And growing up, I went to an arts school called the Arts and College Preparatory Academy, and that was an awesome experience for me because it was the whole school was very open-minded, and there were a lot of people like me and a lot of people that were just free to explore themselves, and that environment was really good for me. It was a bully-free, all-inclusive environment, gender, everyone, no matter how you identified, is welcome, and it was honestly so inspirational and so influential in who I am now as a person, just because it was almost like a utopia that gave me hope for the future of humanity, basically. Art has always been a way for me to express myself in ways that I've found really healing and helpful for me. Art is one way that I process a lot of my emotions. So I've done some projects that focus a lot on gender and really dig at this question of what does it mean to be human. Especially a series of videos called Image really dig into this idea of what does it mean to be human and what does it mean to be a gendered body. The Image series is a series of 7 videos that I've made as self-portraits that address different elements of gender dysphoria or kind of just existence in general. I wasn't planning to go to college before I transferred to ACPA, but ACPA inspired me to go, so I ended up going to a school called Denison, which is just outside of Columbus, and there I studied studio art. So I have my BFA in fine arts right now, which is really cool. I think that college was an interesting experience for me. I really like doing collaborative projects, so I've worked with other people to do stuff that resonates with the both of us. My thesis project for my BFA was one of the most exciting that I've done so far. It was a project called In Between Worlds. It was a series of 7 paintings that go into a virtual reality headset, so you can kind of enter the painting and become a part of this abstract world, which ties into my internal exploration that's ongoing for me, and that's something that I've discovered through healing and processing different emotional pains that I started learning about when I was going to therapy. So it all really ties together in a lot of different ways. Some of it's tangible and some of it's just ideas, but I think that it's a pretty cool soup of stuff. In college, I got back into dancing. I spent a lot of time in the dance building, and I took a class with this amazing person called Michael Morris. Taking another dance class in college gave me the confidence after overcoming a lot of the difficulties that I did in high school, that I experienced in high school. Taking another dance class in college really helped me to open back up into this whole world of movement and experience being free in my own body again.